Alright, 2.7 guided notes. We're digging further into the idea of graphing and inequality, and we're introducing the idea of interval notation. So how do you write that is the answer, right? We know what the answer becomes, but we need to know how to write it. Right? So interval notation is another way of expressing the answer to an inequality. So we already know some ways, right? And if x is greater than 3, that's how you would express that, right? That's one way of answering that inequality, right? We're going to introduce the concepts of parentheses and brackets to show visually where the graph starts and ends. All right, so we use parentheses when it means not included or open. So when your graph has the open circle, greater than or less than, then you're going to have a parentheses. You use a bracket when it means included or closed. So if you have the closed circle, you're going to have the bracket because that means it includes that number. I'll show you what I mean. All right, always use parentheses when it comes to infinity and negative infinity, because the whole point is it never ends, right? All right, so first you have to solve the inequality, right? Just solve like you would any other equation. Just remember the rule: if you have to multiply or divide by a negative, then you have to flip the inequality symbol. Alright, so 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 3 is 12. And then you just solve like a two-step equation. Get rid of the constant. 4x equals negative 36. Divide by 4. Not equals, right? Nice catch. Greater than. So x has to be greater than negative 9. Right? That's one answer. Now if you wanted to graph it, it's another way to represent that answer. Right? X is greater than negative 9. Right? So it's an open circle. And because x is greater than, we're moving to the right. That's the second way you can represent that answer. Right? That's the second way you can represent that answer. Now, how would that look in interval notation? All right? So if it's an open circle, you use parentheses. And for anything with infinity or negative infinity, you use parentheses. So if x has to be greater than, so open circle, parenthesis, negative 9. So it could be negative 9, all right, all the way to infinity. And because it's infinity, we use parentheses. It has to be greater than negative 9, but all the way to infinity. So instead of having to write all those numbers, you could represent it this way. And anyone reading this will understand that negative 9 is not included because it's a parenthesis, not a bracket, and that it could go all the way forever and ever and ever and ever. All right, again, negative 3 times x, negative 3 times 2, so x minus 3x minus 6 greater than 4. Combine your like terms. Negative 2x minus 6 greater than 4. Get rid of your constants. Negative 2x greater than 10. We're dividing by a negative, so we're going to flip our inequality symbol. X is going to be less than negative 5. Alright, let's graph it. Negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, 6, negative 7, negative 8. Alright, open circle because it's less than. And because x is less than, we're going to go left. You want me to tell you a trick? All right, are you paying attention? As long as you make sure that your variable is on the left, the arrow points the way. This is pointing to the right, this goes to the right. This is pointing to the left, it goes to the left. It only works if your variable is on the left, though. Another reason I like my variables on the left. All right, interval notation. Again, we have an open circle, but it's going left, right? So it's going to go all the way to negative infinity. Again, open circle. So think about that for a second. Find the pattern, right? Because we went right, your value goes on the left. Because we went left, your value goes on the right. It makes sense because this one is telling me that it goes all the way to infinity. That's what a right arrow means. And a left arrow is telling me it goes all the way to negative infinity. Ooh, it just changed color. I don't know how I did that. Anyways. Solve 7x minus 2x plus 8 less than or equal to negative 2. Combine like terms. Negative 2. Solve the two-step equation. Nah, I put equals again. Y'all gotta catch me. My brain moves ahead of my hand and then I forget that I'm doing inequalities. Alright, so x is greater than, no, less than or equal to negative 2. So we know it's going to be a closed circle, which means we also know there's going to be a bracket in the interval notation somewhere. Right? X is less than or equal to negative 2. Arrow is pointing left. The arrow is pointing left, so my infinity goes on the left, and my number goes on the right. And remember, because it's a closed circle, you put a bracket that tells people that negative 2 is a possible answer, right? It is included in the possible answers. All right, negative 8x plus 8 minus x. Plus 8 minus x less than or equal to negative 28. Combine your like terms. Negative 9x plus 8 less than or equal to negative 28 minus 8. Negative 9x less than or equal to negative 36. Because we're dividing by a negative, we're going to flip the inequality symbol. X is greater than or equal. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. This is why learning the basics like your multiplication table is so important. Because this would take a lot longer if I counted on my hands. It would take longer if I did it on the calculator. But if you just know that 36 divided by 9 is 4, you're good. And if you know that 9 times 4 is 36, you already know that 36 divided by 9 is 4. Alright, so closed circle at 4. And the arrow's pointing to the right. We know there's going to be a bracket because of the closed circle. And we know there's going to be an infinity symbol on the right. Right? So infinity on the right. Infinity always gets a parentheses. And then bracket on the left. It worked up there too, if you noticed. goes to an infinity on the left, so the negative infinity is on the left side. Okay. Patterns, baby. Find the patterns. All right. Glue it in, ask questions, get the practice sheet.